Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa is spending his birthday leading South Africa's delegation at an investment summit to try and drum up more investment in our country. A bit of a race for investment at the moment when you consider the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic around the world. Mauricio Zuazua is a partner and board director for the global management consultancy Kearney. Mauricio, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time. There's a huge focus on investment at the moment. Does South Africa feature as an attractive destination for international capital at the moment?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Thank you for having me. I think South Africa is by far the most attractive economy in Southern Africa for investment today, and it's for a number of reasons. Not only does it have a large population, a large young population that is ripe for higher productivity, for adoption of technology, but it's also right at the center of geopolitical benevolent opportunities for exports, especially now with the integration of Africa with the Continental Free Trade Agreement.
I mean, the world is going to sort of rewire itself in a way in the aftermath of this pandemic. Things are changing quite quickly. All around us, everyone in the middle class talks about the number of Zoom meetings that they had today. We know, for example, how important mobile data is. I have to say, sitting here in South Africa, though, and I don't think it's just me, but I sometimes get the feeling that we're falling behind a little bit. Our data prices are still very high. We don't manage our spectrum properly. Are we falling behind?
Truth is that every country, is experiencing this crisis, but also every country is making big strides in using what we call the fourth industrial revolution and any other opportunity to get ahead. I would say that South Africa has an opportunity to focus its efforts in competitiveness, what I would call smart competitiveness, focusing on a few sectors that would propel industry forward, that would create employment, and that would have high multiplier effects. Sectors like metals, petrochemicals, textiles, electrical equipment, transport equipment. It's difficult in a country the size of South Africa, with the challenges that it has, to propel the entire industry at the same speed. We see in India, we see in China, we see in Mexico, multiple speed economies. And not that that should be the goal. However, it is an opportunity to focus resources, focus competitiveness, transformations, reforms, investment, and attract investment into the right sectors that will have the highest multiplier effect.
Okay, so we would look then, I mean, we talk all the time about agriculture being one thing we can do, tourism being another thing. We'll have to wait for the vaccines probably before we can do that. You mentioned certain manufacturing, I mean, transport, electrical. I mean, are we not a little bit behind it? The problem we found, I think, is that China makes a lot of things a lot more cheaply than we do. And I mean, that's what happened to our textile industry. China ate our lunch.
Certainly, Stephen, there's an interesting global trend that we started seeing way before COVID, and it is that absolute cost of product is becoming less and less a source of competitiveness. It is more about innovativeness of the product. It's about speed to market. It's about agility of those manufacturers of getting product to the consumer. So it is not the old game of producing cheaply, which propelled China to where it is today. And by the way, China going forward is not only about cost either. So there are some changes in the call it the global industrial ecosystem that would be tailwinds for South Africa. Also, supply chains are changing dramatically. COVID has come to hyper-accelerate the localization of supply chains. Things that we were able to happily depend on from other countries suddenly become a strategic imperative to produce locally. And for the case of South Africa, it can be a greater Africa opportunity, not only South Africa, but also, as I was saying, this export corridors that could be exploited in the west and the east of the continent.
So, I mean, to sort of extend what you're saying and maybe to put an example to it, you talk about speed to market, you talk about cost not being everything. Would an example be what I think is called fast fashion? Now, I'm no expert in this sector, but what we're talking about is a line of clothes that doesn't last very long. It's in the stores for maybe 2 months, not even, a winter season, half a winter season, but it's cool. It's clever, it looks good, it's got a, it sort of taps into the zeitgeist. I mean, I would argue strongly that South Africa has the potential to be cooler than most other places. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about? The right slogan at the right time?
Certainly, it could be consumer goods, Stephen, but it could also be business-to-business goods. When we talk about a sophisticated pump, something that is not something that you and I would think about every day. However, the demand for them is tremendous for big industry like mining or any other type of manufacturing. A sophisticated piece of electrical equipment, a railroad car that could be produced in South Africa but exported to other parts in the Middle East and further. So the opportunities here are not only in the consumer goods, but also in the business-to-business product and service base.
Some of the problems that we've had could come under the heading of self-inflicted. So I mentioned mobile phone spectrum has been an issue, hasn't been managed properly really. We're hoping to have that managed and sorted out by the end of March. There have been other issues around policy uncertainty. The good thing about that column is that these are things that can be fixed. And this really takes me to my next question, which is, do you think investors trust the South African government? And I realize that's a big question to ask you.
Stephen, I'm not qualified to answer that, but I will say this. Investors are looking for certainty. Investors are looking for continuity. Investors are looking for skills and rule of law. If the regulation, the reforms that are happening in South Africa are able to quickly assure these dimensions to investors, and also demonstrate that there's local investment, there's national investment, to be able to attract this further foreign direct investment, and good investment, by the way, not vulture investment, foreign direct investment, then those investors will begin to start getting convinced. That there has to be, we cannot sit on our laurels, there is a tremendous amount of reforms that have to happen. But we need to start. In fact, we need to continue what has started.
The summit that we're seeing today, President Ramaphosa being a part of it, I mean, it's obviously a virtual summit, unfortunately, but are summits like this the right way to go? Do they sort of concentrate minds? You make a big event, everyone talks about it for a few days. Is that the right way to go around this?
I think that certainly is important to draw attention, but it's more important to follow through, Stephen. There must be implementation of the promises. There's a tremendous opportunity to do it. Every country is trying to figure out today what is going to be their next competitive move. And like I said at the beginning, South Africa is sitting right at the crux of a number of trade corridors that could take advantage of in order to restart the economy. Follow through would be the operating word here.
Follow through. I'm going to focus on that for a little while. Thanks very much indeed, Mauricio Zuazua. I really appreciate it. Partner and board director at the global management consultancy Kearney on the line there from Dubai. Mauricio, thanks very much indeed.